man, you know what time it is? It's time for KP's Video News. KP's Video News, y'all. KP's Video News, y'all. KP's Video News, y'all. Right.
That's right, folks. Time for KP's Video News. Back again, ready to do it again. And this time here, man, I got some more episodes of usually if it starts wrong, it ends wrong. Every time. I'm telling you, man, bunch of madness going on in the world today. There's been several incidents in the last few days, man, of athletes going crazy and doing some crazy stuff. I'm gonna get to that, but I also have some stories about some cops that have been found guilty of doing some crazy things, and just a bunch of people in general, man, that are just going nuts, man. They're going bizarre. They're going crazy, folks. They're going crazy out here. So I'm gonna start with this first episode here. We got an ex-officer that gets 4 years in prison for beating another undercover cop that just happened to be black at a protest. So you had a former St. Louis police officer who attacked a black undercover cop colleague that he thought was a protester, was served more than 4 years behind bars. Randy Hayes pleaded guilty in 2019 to using excessive and unreasonable force during the September 2017 incident in which he and other white officers brutally beat and arrested Luther Hall, who was gathering information as protests erupted after a controversial court ruling. A federal judge sentenced Hayes during a court appearance Tuesday in which he expressed being greatly sorry for his actions. And he said, "I'm a good person, but I made a mistake." And Hayes said, is the first of 3 officers involved in the attack to be sentenced. Another former officer, Bailey Coletta, is expected to be sentenced today, and sentences come at a time when activists are demanding more police accountability and re-examination of police interactions with communities of color. Sidebar, this is where I'm at today. If I have a situation going on, and you've been seeing how this works out for you as a black person in America, as a black man in America, why do you keep calling the cops? Because I'm not calling the cops. I'm gonna call a friend. Hell, I'll call an enemy first before I call the cop. Because if you're a black man in America, and you have a situation where you need the cops to come to your house, it doesn't end well for you. So, back to the story. The attack left Hall with a herniated disc, a torn rotator cuff, a hole in his lip that required sutures. According to court records, he also suffered a bruised tailbone and a concussion and other injuries as a result of the violence. Hall told the court in a written statement read by prosecutors that the experiences left him feeling withdrawn from the person he was before the attack. "I feel the same helplessness I felt the night of the attack. As I laid on the ground being beaten head, neck, torso," he wrote. "And the days I can't sleep, I lay in bed in the dark, and all I hear is around me the sound of the camera impacting the ground and the voices of people yelling commands at me." He has since been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and he takes medication to address the mental and physical harm caused by the beating. An attorney stated that Hall won't comment or have his legal team comment until after all the criminal cases are over. Hall and his partner had been following a group of people who were damaging buildings and reporting activity to an intelligence center. According to the complaint filed in civil court, the upheaval filed the acquittal of white officer Jason Stockley, who shot and killed a black man, Anthony Lamar Smith. The mob split once law enforcement started firing beanbag rounds, brandishing batons, and using chemicals on the crowd. Hall continued to pursue the part of the group that caused the damage but his chase ended when officers jumped out of a vehicle. The undercover officer raised his arms up with the cell phone in one hand and the camera in the other hand. According to documents, and Hall complied with the command to get on the ground. He was picked up and slammed face first onto the pavement twice, and which causes blood to gush from his nose and lips. According to the civil complaint, he was then surrounded by officers who attacked him with batons, fists, boots, striking him in the head and body. Officers ordered Hall to put his hands behind his back, even though they were standing on his arms, before placing zip ties on his wrists. After Hall's gear was searched and his camera battery thrown out by then Officer Christopher Myers, he was fully antagonized by Myers as he was shifting in pain. Myers hit Hall on the head and face with a shin guard. According to civil complaint, Myers also smashed Hall's cell phone with his baton, leading to the charge of destruction of evidence. Hall remained cuffed for 10 minutes so he wouldn't blow his cover to protesters before he was eventually recognized as an officer treated by medics. Court records state his undercover partner that night, who was white, was arrested but not beaten. He reported the beating to the assistant chief and then went to a triage center to seek medical attention, according to the civil complaint. Officers involved in the attack were identified in a roll call the next day, but remained on the force until the FBI obtained text messages exchanged between the former Dustin, Boone, and Myers. The text messages shows that the officers were excited to hurt protesters that day, with Boone testing, "It's going to be a lot of fun beating the hell out of these people once the sun goes down and nobody can tell us apart." Boone was convicted in June by a jury for depriving Hall of his rights. Hayes' sentence was more lenient than the 10 years he could have faced, and the sentence won't be appealed since Hayes pled guilty. So it's like, yeah. The reality is, as we live out the rest of your life in a degree of pain because of the decision that Randy Hayes and Bailey Coletta being my physical being, mental health, and overall. And so this is the cop that got beat up by his fellow cops. Cop while black. Being a cop while black, man, you know, hey, it is what it is. If it starts out wrong, it usually ends wrong every time. So, we got another situation where cops beat a black man with handcuffs. They use the handcuffs like brass knuckles. The officer has been fired and is facing 99 years in prison. When Andre Howard, a black man, fled from Houston police during a traffic stop in 2019, one of the officers caught on body camera footage telling his partner to shoot him. As they pursued, when that officer finally caught up to Howard, he used a pair of handcuffs wrapped around his left hand like a pair of brass knuckles and repeatedly punched the fleeing man in the back of the head. Now the former officer is facing prison time. Lucas Vieira, 31 years old, a 4-year veteran with the Houston Police Department, was indicted by Harris County District Court grand jury on July 9th. 2 days later, the Houston Police Department announced that it had fired Vieira months ago in April, and if convicted, he faces up to 99 years in prison and as well as a $10,000 fine. The indictment also comes just 3 months after Howard, 34, filed a federal civil lawsuit accusing Vieira of unjustly striking him and of violating his rights to unjust search and due process. Mr. Howard suffered great pain, contusions, humiliation, anxiety, fear, loss of sleep, headaches, and other mental anguish as a result of the defendant's actions. So the encounter with police occurred July 7, 2019, when Vieira initially stopped Howard on a vehicle traffic violation. According to the officer's attorney, police noticed marijuana on Howard's center console when they first approached the car. During the traffic stop prompting a search, police placed Howard in handcuffs, but they found nothing. As Officer Serrano began to put on rubber gloves for a cavity search outside in the street, wow, Howard began to run from the police toward a nearby freeway. As he pursued, Vera screamed, "Just shoot him! Just shoot him!" And belts out gunshot noises. The chase only lasted one city block before Vieira caught up with Howard, who pooped in his pants because he was so afraid. And the officer then allegedly used his handcuffs as brass knuckles and bashed Howard in the back of the head at least 3 times. Howard, who said he was fled for fear of his life, can be heard telling officers, "All right, you got it," as Vera throws punches, according to the body camera footage. Cisco says his client only hit Howard in the shoulder and that only one of the hits managed to strike a man in the head. He also says that Serrano found 18 grams of cocaine immediately next to where officers caught up with Howard. Yeah, right. And when Howard was brought back to the vehicle, the officers on the scene, who are also named in the lawsuit, pulled his pants down, exposing his buttocks and genitalia to a passerby, and made fun of him as he lay there covered in feces. Oh, wow, man, this is ridiculous. The lawsuit also alleges the officers pushed his arms over his head from behind as a pain technique as he lay there handcuffed and defenseless. Wow, this is crazy, man. This is really crazy. And by taking immediate and decisive action in response to Howard's reckless and dangerous actions, Lucas and his partners probably saved both Howard's life and possibly, this is the cop's attorney. Howard is seeking damages for the pain, suffering, and mental anguish he experienced as a result of the encounter. According to the lawsuit, it also says the defendants are liable for punitive damages as well as attorney fees relating to the case. Wow. This is really crazy, man. Crazy stuff going on out here. So I'm kind of switch reels here. Now, this has been a cold case for a minute about Jakira Barnes, which was started at she was 13 years old when she first killed an alleged gang member in Chicago. So she was a gang member. I think she might have been what gang was she affiliated with? I believe she was affiliated with the Gangster Disciples in Chicago. Anyway, let me read the story here. King Von, it's like a rapper, King Von. He's deceased now, and so it said as far as the story goes, dead rapper King Von was named as the killer of 17-year-old girl Jakira Barnes that had murdered over a dozen people. It's like I said, she started when she was 13 years old, killing people. The Chicago police have released the unsealed documents regarding the death of Jakira Barnes, who was shot 9 times when she was killed back in 2014. So, the rumors surrounding the killer of Jakira Barnes have seemingly been put to rest with the release of the unsealed documents, which was just released today. And the teenager was reportedly responsible for the killing of more than a dozen people as a member of the Gangster Disciples in Chicago after being gunned down by a hooded figure. Barnes had a fearsome reputation in the city before meeting her end on the streets that she had gained her notoriety. Now, the new information that has been released by the Chicago Police Department about Barnes' case, and it has reportedly named who they believe they pulled the trigger. In the documents, it reportedly shows a witness have named rapper King Von, who was thought to be a member of the Black Disciples. So these two gangs used to be together at one time. Now they're separated. You got the Black Disciples and you got the Black and the Gangster Disciples. They used to be called the Black Gangster Disciples. Now it's 2 separate gangs. And the document states that an unknown male wearing a gray hoodie and blue jeans approached the victims. The unknown offender produced a handgun and began firing in the direction of the victim, striking all 3. The unknown offender was observed entering an unknown vehicle, making good his escape. In documents, police also state that the investigation revealed that the victim was killed by Davon Bennett. Bennett is the real name of King Von, The rapper, who is also positively identified as the offender. It also states in the document that there was not enough evidence to charge Vaughn with the killings, so they were not filed in the end. King Von was also killed by gunfire November 2020 after an altercation with a fellow rapper. He reportedly began arguing with Quando Rondo, with the dispute escalating into gunfire. The gunfight that followed, 3 people were killed and 4 others injured, with one of the wounded placed into custody for the murder of King Von. And so on November 14th, King Von was buried in his hometown of Chicago. So, like I said, if it starts wrong, it ends wrong, y'all. Every time. So, like I said, that girl, Jakira Barnes, like I said, she started killing people, man, when she was 13 years old. And for 4 years, she was on a rampage. She died. She got murdered when she was 17. And as the story states right now, killed by a rapper, the rapper King Von, who obviously got killed back in November by another rapper, Quando Rondo. Crazy, man. Crazy stuff going on. Real crazy stuff going on. All right, so I'm going to end with this story here. This is a story about Richard Sherman. And it's really kind of crazy because here you have a guy, and he's not the only one that's been going through this. They had one of the they had a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers got into an altercation with his wife here in Vegas yesterday, and so these people, this particular group, they just got married back in March, so they basically still newlyweds. They were at one of the high-end hotels here, extreme high-end hotels. They got into an argument, altercation. They still on their honeymoon now. The wife hits the quarterback, knocks his teeth out. He calls security. Security calls the cops. They arrest his wife. His wife goes to jail for assault and battery. So, you know, that's one situation. So you got another situation where you had a guy, another football player. I just looked at that story. It's another football player whose wife basically cut up his sneakers. He had some designer sneakers, man. She cut up his sneakers and poured bleach on his custom sneakers and poured paint on his motorcycle. Safari, you know, he accuses Eric Mena of dumping bleach on his designer tennis shoes and like I said, pouring paint all over his motorcycles and stuff. You know, I don't understand what's really going on in the world today, but I do know one thing. It's time to really start screening these people you're dealing with and getting involved in these relationships with, man. Take your time. So the wife of Richard Sherman stated that she called 911 and that Richard Sherman, the cornerback, had been drinking as well as threatening to harm himself. And the 911 call, Ashley Moss described the scene that he's trying to leave now. He's been aggressive. He's wrestling with my uncle. She stated to the dispatcher, and he's threatening to kill himself. He sent text messages to people saying he's going to hang himself. And Moss said Sherman had no weapons and asked police not to shoot him when they arrived. And he said that if police showed up, he would try to fight them, she said. So that goes back to what I said earlier, folks. Sidebar. Got a problem? Don't call the cops. Do what you can to solve it. You black? You putting your life in your hands if you're calling the cops. So back to the story. Moss said that Sherman drank 2 bottles of hard liquor and was trying to leave in his car, but she had shut the gate, so he couldn't get out the gate. And on the second 911 calls, that's 2 911 calls. Moss's uncle followed the progress of Sherman as he apparently left in one car, and she followed him. The uncle was in a different car. Sherman was arrested later Wednesday, which was yesterday, on suspicion of burglary, domestic violence, as well as charges of resisting arrest and malicious mischief. And so Moss later stated that her husband did not hurt anyone during the incident. But at this time, we're going to make no statements except he didn't harm anyone, Moss said. Kids were not harmed in the incident. He's a good person, and this is not in his character. We were doing all right, just trying to get him out. I want people to know no one was injured. However, when the police department approached Sherman, the officers responded to a report of in-progress burglary and found Sherman attempting to force entry into a family member's home. So this is a family member that obviously lived close enough to Sherman where he left his house and was going to another family member's house. So that's another family member. Police said he was trying to break in to his family member's house, so that's why they charged him with burglary. Sherman attempted to walk away when he notified he would be arrested, and then physically resisted when the officers made contact with him. The police said a K-9 team was deployed during the encounter outside the home, and Lowe said that Sherman suffered a lower leg laceration from a police dog used in his arrest. So he got bit by a police dog. Oh boy, I'm telling you, man. This so, you know, I don't know, man. This so Washington State Police also stated investigating Sherman as a part of a separate incident in which he alleged to have struck a cement barrier before arriving at the residence, police said in a statement, and they obtained a warrant for a blood draw after observing signs of possible impairment. So they trying to get his blood and everything, man. This is why you can't call the cops, man. I got a problem, I'm calling a friend. Calling a friend, hey man, get over here. Hey homie, get over here quick. Get over here quick. Don't call 911. I need you. You need help, call me. I'm around the block, call me. I'm telling you, man, it's crazy. Crazy. This is the world we live in. So that's the second part of, if it starts out wrong, you in wrong. Every time, folks. Every time.
You know what time it is? It's time for KP's Video News.
Know what time it is, folks? It's time for KP's Video News, y'all. That's right. KP's Video